All right, baby, here we go. You know what time it is. It's the NFL Strategy Show, Monday morning quarterback edition, taking a look at everything that happened in week 16, recapping, applying it to week 17, and then we'll do it all again next year. I'm Dave Lochran, with me, Manny, Laura, and of course, our sponsor, as always, Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, rocking the $200,000 Christmas Day baller, the holiday baller. $50,000 in overlay. You got to get in on that. Last time, the turkey baller, turkey bone, I don't remember what it was called, but that thing filled up super quick, days before Thanksgiving actually kicked off. And that's because of the overlay. $50,000 in overlay. You're not going to get that anywhere else. And if you haven't signed up yet, use the sign-up code AWESEMO when you sign up using this link. I'm going to tell you how to get there because you'll get $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points when you sign up and deposit through us. It's as good as cash to be used on the site to play and win real money. So why would you not do it? You know, you throw 3 entries in there, boom. You got a guaranteed overlay. You got some management free contests where everything paid in by the player gets paid back out to the player. The competition isn't as stiff. I don't need to say much more. I've sold you already because why would you not do it? Go to awesemo.com, click on the NBA tab and articles. You'll see the Cash Building Blocks article. It's free, written by our boy EMAC. Scroll to the bottom. The link is right there. Yahoo. Click it. Use the sign-up code AWESEMO, AWESEMO. Deposit. Get your $30 in YSRPs. Hop in that $200,000 baller. Hop in the $30K NBA baller today. Or go ahead, hop in the $150,000 NFL baller for week 17 of the NFL. Why not, right? I mean, just do it. If you haven't done it yet, you're crazy. The sponsor of the NFL Strategy Show, and we love them. Manny, Laura, this is our last one of the year. Christmas coming up on Wednesday. Want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. Hopefully everyone has a great holiday. But this will do it for us, man. 17 up, 17 down.
Yeah, man, was a fun ride, right? NFL is always fun, man. The exclusivity of just having games on Sunday, making it that much more enjoyable, and we look forward to it every week. Man, it's awesome playing. It really is. And then closing out the year again next to you, doing shows like this, obviously an honor. You guys at Awesome are fantastic. What a great group. And dude, just recovering or just kind of just going over everything again. It's I love doing this. It's part of what I do, and doing it next to you, man. Yeah, happy holidays to you too, fam.
For sure, man. And next week will be our last Awesome Radio for the season. We'll be taking off wild card weekend and divisional round weekend. So hang out with us, Sirius 210 XM87. I know a lot of you guys hang out with us each and every weekend there, 5 to 7 p.m. Saturday, 7 to 9 on Sunday. We recap everything on Sunday, and we approach and break everything down on Saturday. It's a lot of fun. And we'll be picking back up once we get a little bit further into the postseason. So, yeah, join us next weekend. That'll do it for the regular season. But week 16 almost in the books, Manny. And then with week 17, you have no Thursday night football, no Saturday football, no Monday, 16 games on a Sunday. So it's going to be a huge one. We are not going to do any prep work or research for that, but take a look at what won this week, what didn't win, what worked, and what didn't work. And I just wanted to, oh, excuse me.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, man. I was saving that. I just wanted to throw this out there. We had a DM from Nick Rios, and he sent a screenshot of a very nice night he had. Or a very nice day that he had. And he said, I listened to every show, but the most important one, in my opinion, is your Monday show with Manny, Laura, and reviewing the past weeks. Hearing y'all say trust the process, don't get disheartened is why I won this money. Trusted the process, trusted you guys. Thank you. You guys are all awesome. Have a Merry Christmas, brother. Well, Merry Christmas to you, Nick. And I'm glad you had a nice week 16. It's always nice to see that these shows can help people out along the way of what can be a very trying NFL season, being that there only are 17 weeks.
Yeah, no, it's anytime you get messages like that from whoever, and those messages, I know some don't like publicating it on Twitter or whatever. It doesn't even have to be. Just for us hearing something like that, regardless of stakes and entry fees or whatever, it's all relative at the end, man. And if it's great for you, if it's a milestone for you, if it helps you out, during the holidays. A little extra bonus can go a long way, man. And it's just fun to hear that stuff too. It makes me feel not just appreciated. I know you do too, but the work doesn't go unnoticed, and it really does help people. So especially around this time of year, man, that's awesome to hear. I'm so happy for him and the many others that won and took home some green this weekend. Fantastic work, and again, congrats to those guys as well.
We're glad to have all of you with us. Anybody that's new and all of our regulars hanging out in the YouTube chat. You ready to take a look?
Let's do it.
All right, so I pulled up, we're using Fantasy Cruncher lineup study here. You can see all of the contests, all of the top scorers, what their player pools looked like. J Burial, I'm going to call him. That's what I'm going to call him, Manny. He took home $500,000. And thanks, geez, I appreciate that, man. I know it's yeah, you're right. Laz gets fit. We still didn't get him on. Maybe next year, Manny, we'll open up the season, week 1 with Laz gets fit.
Yeah, I'm down. He's a celebrity now, dude. I know he has a busy schedule traveling the U.S. making appearances. So if we could get him on Awesome, that'd be awesome, man.
It certainly would. We'll do our best. And I apologize we weren't able to get him on this season, but it wasn't for the lack of trying. So he played 6 lineups. He cast 3 of 6, and he won $500,000 with an Andy Dalton, Tyler Boyd, John Ross. I always mix it up because Joe Ross, the pitcher in Major League, I always get that wrong. With a full 5-player game stack for Cincinnati and Miami, Manny. Check this out. Dalton at 3%, Mack at 12%, Barkley at 10%, Albert Wilson at 2%. He didn't have Devontae Parker. Albert Wilson at 2%. Tyler Boyd at 13%. John Ross at 7%. Gesicki at 7%. Michael Thomas at 25%. And the Colts defense, 30 points with 6%. I mean, you think about this, it's kind of amazing. Albert Wilson had 15. John Ross had 15. Marlon Mack had 18, nothing crazy. It was Dalton with 38, Barkley with 47, Boyd with 37, Gesicki with 26, and Thomas with 35. He had, 4 guys of 30 plus, and then the cheap role players, 5 because the Colts D. And then a bunch of guys that were just good but not great. Full out game stack for Miami and Cincinnati, went to overtime, had 72 or 73 total points in this game. And his second lineup, look, Dalton again, Wilson, John Ross, Boyd, Gesicki. He went with this, and Thomas. And Colts D. The only difference between his first and second lineup, right, was Carson over Barkley. Oh, he had Mack too. Carson over, is that the only difference?
It seems like it, yeah. The one in the game stack was a 3-man, not a 5-man. Drake.
No. His first and second lineup. I'm talking about the same guy.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
The only difference was 1 player, and it was the difference between first place and 656th place. Is it crazy?
All it was an injury, really.
Yeah, right. I mean, he wasn't going to have a Barkley type game, but still, look at that. 1 player is the difference between $500,000 and making $75 profit. Now he won, but I mean, how many other players are there out there that went Carson over Barkley in what would have been a winning lineup? You see stuff like that, and it's like almost nauseating. But the Seattle Seahawks lost their whole damn backfield. And here you have it, $500,000 with not 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, but 5 players from Miami, Cincinnati.
We talked about it yesterday on Sirius, but you know what all the top 15 players in this tournament have in common?
Is it like Dalton or Daniel Jones or Fitzpatrick?
No, I would guess same too. I'd probably even guess Saquon, really, but no, it's actually the Colts defense.
Oh, yes. I should have. I don't know how I didn't mention that.
Anytime you have something like that, it's an extreme outlier, right? And to the point where you could literally have the same exact lineup and switch the Colts for the next best defense, and you're not in the top 100. You're not in the top 200.
Yep.
Like it's something insane. So it's just like you probably didn't even need to have all your receivers go for even 20 plus. You could afford to have Albert Wilson at 15, John Ross at 15. You could afford these guys. You could have Mac at sub 22, and it's you didn't really even need them as long as you had a decent lineup, which obviously this was, and you had the Colts in there with 30. I mean, the Colts put up what Albert Wilson and John Ross did combined.
Amazing.
They were incredible. So and you could argue that what did you see this coming? I don't know. Will Greer starting? Could maybe a tough matchup. Who knows how he would have performed? Sure, but did you project them for 30 fantasy points? Impossible. It's one of those things you kind of have to land on it. And then if you did, and then on top of that you had a decent lineup, you're gonna have a pretty good day. So. Not surprised by the final score, even though some of these guys got 15. The Colts were that important. They were really good yesterday.
Robert Gall says, I don't think they get rid of defense because it adds randomness that helps players of less skill. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think they'll ever get rid of it, but I mean, I know that you would be an advocate of getting rid of DST.
I mean, because if you want skill. This should be a skill game, and it really feels like you're just kind of throwing something out there. Even the approach of saying it was Will Greer or whatever, they didn't get the points because of Will Greer.
I was just gonna say it was punt return.
It wasn't even Will Greer turnover. So I mean, it's truly random. I feel, and I don't know. Look how it sways a tournament. It sways a tournament so much where a person with the exact same lineup will have 18 less points. So you'll go from 261 almost down to 241. You're like at 243, which won't even get you in the top anything. Like it's frustrating. So it's that's how we see it at the top of a tournament. But if you look in the 1,000 range, the person that placed 1,000, person that placed 2,000, like the same thing is happening there. They just didn't have the nuts lineup around the Colts, but it happens throughout a tournament, and it happens. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't change it either. I think you're right. They want to give, the casuals some sort of life. And if they hit on a Colts defense on a random week, it could turn out to be, I guess, okay. But it's if you didn't have the Colts, you were nowhere near the top of tournaments. They blew out the next best defense.
Did you say the top 15 had the Colts D?
Yeah, you could just scroll down.
Yeah, 16. I think 16 and 17 did too. So if you look at the 18th place finisher, this is what's crazy. So he finishes 18th place, 246.6, wins $2,000. Epi, 12,588. Now check this out. Look at the actual players he has and then the defense. Ready? So Ryan Fitzpatrick, 36. DeAndre Washington, 19. Barkley, 47. Devontae Parker, 25. Tyler Boyd, 36. Sims, it's saying 0, but he didn't have 0. He scored 2 touchdowns.
Right.
Okay. 5% of Gesicki, 26. Kamara, 29. Like, this was a better overall lineup.
Oh, yeah.
Than the other ones. And then he got, from the Baltimore defense, 3 fantasy points from the Baltimore defense. So the guy that won had 261. This 18th had 246, so he lost by 15 points. Lost by 15 points because his defense got outscored by 27 points.
And he did have enough money for the Colts there. He just chose wrong, I guess.
Right. Well, and that's the thing, though. If there's people who are like, dude, if you didn't have Colts defense, like everyone, you got Captain Hindsights all over the place where it's like, yeah, man. If you didn't have Colts defense, you're crazy. Will Greer has never started a game. Like you said, though, these were punt return touchdowns. It
had nothing to do with Will Greer. Yeah, he threw interceptions or whatever, but they weren't returned for touchdowns, so it doesn't matter.
And if you're like, oh, well, dude, the special teams for Carolina is bad. I mean, that's just like
come on.
The predictability factor in that type of stuff is crazy. So.
There's been before that there were 8 return touchdowns this season. 8. There were 2 in one game from the same team.
Crazy. Robert says Cheese is good. Scored 279 in the $3 500,000 person tourney. It was the best team on DraftKings yesterday. We can take a look at that. For some reason, because this is such a big contest, it takes a little bit of time to fill. But it takes a second for me to load. I thought my computer's been acting weird lately, but it's a spot where defense can be very frustrating. Aji says defense is 100 times more frustrating than kickers. In a sense, it kind of is, because like kickers, maybe once in a while you'll see one of those games where, like, what was that game? Was it the Jets and Dolphins that had like 8 or like 10 combined field goals? You remember that a few weeks ago?
Yep.
You have stuff like that. But generally speaking, the range of outcomes isn't nearly as insane as it is for something like defense, where, 30, what was the next best scoring defense on the slate?
12.
So 18 points outscored him because of kick returns.
Yeah, here's the thing. I've mentioned this before. You don't have to. Okay, if they don't want to eliminate defenses, you don't have to. But change the scoring. There's no way a defensive touchdown can be worth that much when it's such a rare thing in the game, right?
So would you suggest that there should be more incentive to play teams against teams that are going to limit their scoring?
Yeah, like so like the amount of points, like every team should start off with maybe 15 or something, right? And I don't know, as you let points roll in, then whatever, you go down that way. But it's so easy to get to 0 that way. Number one, turnovers don't matter nearly as much as a touchdown. Like what, an interception or a fumble is 1 or 2 points, when a touchdown is the full value. Like, and you get 1, and it's like, man, you are way ahead of everyone else. That it's, and on top of it, you get 2 touchdowns and forget it. It's all but a wrap. Like we saw the Patriots one week score almost 40. Like imagine that one. They were 20 something better than the next best defense. Yep. That's the equivalent to like another legit receiver in your lineup. It's like you had an extra receiver more than everyone else, and a good one at that. So, and that's it. It could only happen maybe by one defense, right? So it's not even that you could save at defense, that you can pay up at defense. It's, I don't know, a TD should be 3 or 4 points max. That's it, because it's such a rare thing. You can't have the randomness of a touchdown just give you the win, pretty much.
Right. Let's take a look at how Cheese is good did it in this. Mind you, there's a ton of entries in this, just a ton, 200,000 entries. He won $50,000 with this lineup. Now he had 20 lineups, 20 max. Andy Dalton, Devonta Freeman. Freeman was a very good play. Barkley, another very good play. Michael Thomas. So out of the gate, you got 2 expensive guys, so we know it's about to get cheap. Tyler Boyd, John Ross, Mike Gesicki, DeAndre Washington, and Colts defense. I mean, honestly, that's just a really good lineup. And the Colts defense still is the reason you got there. Now, let's be fair. He had 279 with Colts. So even if he had, I don't know, 10 from another team, you're still talking about 259, which is coming in top 5 in any contest on the entire week. So, I mean, a really good lineup. Very low-owned Dalton, super low-owned Ross, Gesicki at 7%. Washington was popular. But really, this lineup, I'd say outside of Dalton and Ross, it was a semi-chalky lineup.
Yeah, I don't see anything crazy at all that you're going to look at this lineup and be like, whoa, where did he get this from? Granted, the Andy Dalton's game stack, instead of Fitz having Dalton in there, I think was pretty unique on its own. The fact that you have a 4-man stack here, I think is pretty unique on its own. So by default, you're going to have uniqueness across your lineup. And then can you just peg the right fillers alongside? And he did. Barkley, Michael Thomas was fantastic. Devonta Freeman was. The Colts was the best defense. I think, if I'm not mistaken, someone mentioned it earlier, but I think that is the best lineup anyone created on DraftKings. We also did the optimal lineup. We'll look at it soon, but it got really close, man. That is actually really close to the actual optimal DK lineup from yesterday. So pretty impressive. Pretty impressive.
Very. And you look at his other lineups, he ended up cashing what, 7 of them, and
Yep.
sometimes that's all you need is one big one. He went over 200 in 2 of them. Now look, he had some horrible lineups too, but that's what's great about this when you mix up exposure. I mean, he had one at 84 fantasy points with Wilson, Washington, Le'Veon Bell, DJ Moore got hurt. Metcalf had 0 points. Beckham, Hollister, Elliott, and Panthers. I mean, just a brutal lineup there. 190,000 out of 198,000, and he won it. And that makes it that is always when I look at it and say, all right, let's see how he diversified things with 20 teams. 6 Rivers, 3 Wilson, 2 Dalton, 2 Ryan, and both Daltons cashed. 2 Fitzpatrick, 2 Wentz, 1 Dak, 1 Lamar, 1 Dwayne Haskins. Running back, look how wild he went with running backs, man. He mixed this up a lot. Lewis, Washington, Barkley, Freeman, all the way down, Manny. That's like, what, 15 running backs in there or more?
Yeah, no, and that's exactly what you want to do, right? I think that's exactly what you want to do in these 20 maxes where you still want to diversify. Just because it's 20 max doesn't mean you want to put all your eggs in one basket, right? And I think that's the idea. He didn't really get all too different, right? If you look at like Lewis, Washington, Barkley, Freeman, I think that was the standard top 5 for everyone, right? And I even like some Adrian Peterson. He had Adrian Peterson, Le'Veon, Zeke. Like he wasn't all too different at all. He just made really, really good lineups. That's all it was. He just made good lineups.
Wide receiver. Look at this. This is 20 teams. Keep this in mind. 20 teams. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. 31 wide receivers. 31 wide receivers.
That's insane.
7 tight ends. And look at how defenses are all over the place.
Too, yeah.
So if you
By the way, the one that won was his only Colts.
Yep. And we say that all the time. It's just crazy how that works. If you had to guess, do you think these were crunched or handmade?
Dang. I know he's a big MLB guy, so I don't know for sure. And being only a 20 max, you can make these by hand. Yeah, I think you can make these by hand.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what type of settings you're running if you've got this. Like, are you just running? Maybe you would know better. A ton of randomness, or
even then, I don't think so. I think because if I look at the actual stacks, they look pretty well thought out, right?
It's hard for me to think this was crunched. We could be wrong, but it doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't feel like it.
It doesn't feel like it because, they're really well thought out, but then he has really questionable plays. Like in his Matt Ryan stack, he has Julio Jones, and if you know who Christian Blake is, I have no clue who Christian Blake is, but there's a Christian Blake at wide receiver in there. I'm not even sure if that's a real player or just an error in our system, but he had whoever Christian Blake is in there. So could very well be handmade, but when you see things like that, you start to wonder.
Right, like Arcega-Whiteside couldn't have been projected for more than like 5 fantasy points. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of how you would get to this much if you had. Robert said he crunched him. He had 70 in the 9, sure, but I don't know. I don't know. It seems I would be interesting to ask him how you end up with this big of a player pool, Manny.
In 20 lineups.
On 20 lineups, right?
Yeah. So he's the guy behind Russell Gage. Nice to know. Did not have one single share, and thank goodness he got a 0. So anyway, no. It's interesting because you do like differentiating, and I think that's the plan, right? But it still looks like they're all very, very good lineups.
He had 78 players in 20 teams.
Well, I mean, it is what it is, right? That's sometimes what you need in those 20 matches.
I think
all you need is fun, right?
I think it's great because look what happened. He had some awful lineups, and then he had the best lineup on the entire week. on DraftKings overall. I'm not
Yep.
knocking it at all. I'm
No,
saying
no,
I'm,
impossible to knock for
I'm
sure.
saying I usually have like 90 players in 150 lineups.
He had 20 less players than you, but you had 130 less, or he had 130 less lineups than you usually what we run. No, I feel the same way. I always say you need to differentiate, and if I had 20 lineups only, I'd probably run two at most, maybe three of a quarterback I like the most, and I just differentiate the rest. If you can do that, you'll inevitably land on some pretty good lineups, and he did. He did.
When you look at the guy that played, or that came in second, Ant Lobo, he had a lot of he played what 11 lineups and
Yep.
had 8 quarterbacks, so diversified a lot there. At running back, yeah, he had Travion Williams. Like that tells me right there that those were
Wow.
that was made by hand because he was probably saying if Joe Mixon gets hurt, or because Joe Mixon had that stomach bug, that
Oh yeah.
that maybe Travion Williams comes in and gets some opportunity.
That's some next level thinking, let me tell you.
I had a little bit of Geo just in case. I think I had like 2%.
Like, how do you skip Geo before that?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. And
That
Geo
is
sucked.
next level thinking right there.
Yeah, Geo sucked anyway. But yeah, and then a lot of wide receivers here. Only one Julio Jones. Let's see, was Julio Jones in his winning lineup? Or not winning, second place lineup. No, it was another Dalton game stack with Parker, Boyd, Ross, and Gesicki. Isn't that very interesting how John Ross is in all of these top lineups, even though he only had 15, just because of how the lineup worked out with him in it at 4,200?
Yeah, you save a little bit, and you can afford the extra Barkley or the extra top tier guy, and you needed Barkley in there, right? You needed that big, massive game. You needed to save somewhere, and if you were game stacking, luckily some of those Bengals were able to put up some points. I think Erickson had 11, Ross had 15, and obviously Boyd and either one of Gesicki or Parker on the other side was a very, very good game stack. So you didn't need the massive scores, but if you had respectable scores, obviously keeping the Colts in there and Barkley maybe, you are going to have a massive night. Yeah, it looks weird to see these sub 20 point guys in there, but that's really what it took to get up there.
Robert says, knowing how Cheese plays MLB very unique, he must use Excel formulas to kick out guys that are overowned for their projections. No, and Spencer says Ross was a good play. Gesicki low. No, they were both. No one's saying they weren't good plays. It's interesting to see how they fit in. He could have maybe just set exposure caps really low.
Sure. I mean, it looks like so some of these guys at the top kind of look like they in the game stacks they were willing to extend the game stack pool. So like have Gesicki in there, have Albert Wilson, Hearns, John Ross, all these guys. But then outside of that game stack, they weren't really on those guys at all. And they were kind of only in there for game stacks, you know? So pretty interesting dynamic when you look at it that way.
Yeah, no question. And look, I use something that limits my player pool for me automatically.
Sure.
But point being, and I'm saying it's unique. I never once said this is bad. I think it's great in a 2020 max with 200,000 people. 78 players in 20 lineups is just not something you see very often.
Yeah, no, this is one of those things that you kind of, I even wonder how you can do this because
that's what I'm
not sure
saying. If you're crunching it, you have to be like really limiting I guess exposure caps are very low.
Yeah, has to be extremely low. There's just no way.
Yeah, but when you look at all of the guys at the top, one thing you'll see here, look how many different quarterbacks there are, right? They all have a ton of different quarterbacks. Here's another one, G Bracken, with a huge player pool. So this is something that you're seeing in both of these. Very interesting.
Yeah. It's you ever see those papers that kind of break down the math of DFS and how to beat it efficiently or whatever?
Yep.
All these guys mention the same thing. It's differentiate a ton and play different scenarios all the time. So like if games go off, if this game goes off, if that game goes off, what if they lose and they don't win, and just try to cover different scenarios and find make a pool of lineups that are really uncorrelated with each other, but each individual lineup has a lot of correlation. So it's like a weird thing, but it looks exactly like that. You have lineups that cover a bunch of different, results that can take place, and if one of those happens, you have that scenario, which I guess in the Dolphins case was either one of Fitz and Dalton with their with the full game stack there, pairing it with the right guys outside of that, and you were able to kind of get into a pretty nice score. And if you did that, you had a massive day, but then that's going to mean that a lot of your lineups are going to lose, and you'll probably lose most of your action if one of those lineups doesn't hit a big score.
So that's a good point, right? Because you look at Red Sox 024, he finished in 5th place. He cashed like 6 of 20. And like that's kind of what you're looking for, right?
Yep.
Cheese and Lobo 7 of 20, or 7 of 11 actually. He had a really solid one. 7 of 20, 10 of 20 here. CSZRA Raz, 20 lineups. So yeah, this is on this slate. Now this isn't always the case. Sometimes a tighter player pool will work, especially when chalk hits. But you got to get unique here. And you want to try, like you said, you're really trying to cover as many potential outcomes as possible with 20 lineups.
Yep, and it's just try to cover scenarios you feel strongly about, and you can put again all your eggs in one basket. So if you think pick a random game, if you think that game's going to shoot out, you can't have like 7 versions of that shootout. That probably wouldn't make sense in a really high payout tournament, right? Where it's really top heavy. So just kind of seeing these guys actually take that approach, and you kind of have to have that mentality in DFS to where, listen, it's a zero sum game, but tournaments are almost negative sum, right? Because of payout structures and rake and everything. Mm-hmm. So you have to take those risks, and maybe sometimes these risks when you're running multiple lineups means, just try to cover different bases. Obviously you can't cover all your bases, but you try to cover different bases. And if you hit one of them, hopefully you have the luck to get up there and get a top, 0.5% score, half percentile score, and make your money that way. But trying to bulk cash like a group of 20 lineups together near the top, that's extremely, extremely risky. So with these payout structures, I like what I see from these guys.
So I do want to take a look at the $1,500 entry, $5 million prize pool contest and see where we land on this. Utica won this.
Yep.
I'd say decent day for him. 40 entries, 100 or $1.1 million profit. That's pretty good. Good.
Yeah. Once you take I already did this. So once you take a look at all the tournaments, you'll see he's probably closer to 2 million. But yeah, very, very good day, I think.
Amazing. Yeah, he had a huge one. I saw him up there in a bunch of these big contests.
Yep.
Let's take a look. Before we take a look at his winning lineup, let's see what his player pool looked like with 40. So 9 quarterbacks. Decent amount of running backs. You probably got like 13 there, maybe more, 14. A lot of Washington, a lot of Lindsey, Christian McCaffrey. Very spread out, though, overall. But see, look, like way fewer wide receivers in something like this, but also way fewer entries. You're talking about 198,000 entries in that $3. And on this one, you're talking about 3,700. So how do you draw the difference there, Manny? I think it's important to distinguish between huge field contests and then something like this.
Yeah, sometimes in these smaller, and it's all relative, right? In those huge field contests, funny because last week I covered this topic specifically, is you kind of have to make lineups based on the contest you're entering, right? So something like the Millie Maker with 200,000+ entries, you got to go for the huge upside, the home run, probably 4 or 5-man game stacks. Hope you hit that way, because kind of just pegging each player individually is already difficult, number one. And if you can do it, maybe there's someone that could still do it a little bit better. Like the luck is never going to be on your side that way. You kind of just have to hit the home run with a game stack to where now if you're talking, 3,000 entries instead of 200,000+, well, maybe you don't have to go to the 4-man game stacks. You can go to the 3-man game stacks and not risk as much as you would with 4-man. So if you take a look at Yuta, he kind of went the 3-man route where most of the lineups are just a QB, wide receiver, and an opponent, right? Like he didn't really do much more than that.
Right.
And so some of the lineups where he had Matt Ryan, he chose Hooper as the pairing, and he went QB, tight end, and opponent. Didn't really do much more outside of that. I think once you start getting to the 4 and 5-man stack, that's more for the large field tournaments. I think last year and 2 years prior, the kind of runs I was having in the Millionaire Maker were because I took those big leaps of faith, right? I went for the 4-man, I went for the 5-man. As a contest gets smaller, you can't really go for that huge home run because it's way too much risk for a small tournament.
For sure, that's a good way to lay it out. So the $1 million. No, by the way, he came in fourth too.
Yeah, he did.
First and fourth place with two different stacks. I don't know. Did he stack? So he had Matt Ryan and Julio. Ran it back with Conley. Okay.
Correct.
So like you said, a smaller stack. Miles Sanders, another big game. Colts defense in both of them. How much Colts D did he have? He had 20%.
He had 8.
Yeah, 20% Colts D. Gesicki, Boyd, Barkley, Washington. So it's funny. He had 2 players from that overtime game between Cincinnati and Miami. Just didn't have the quarterbacks. And then he ended up with 249 points, which is still a phenomenal score, even in a smaller field contest like this. Second place, 150,000, was Dalton, Lindsey, Gordon. Gordon was terrible, but had 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Corey Davis, Michael Thomas, Tyler Boyd, Mike Gesicki, Ezekiel. Oh, wow. He had Ezekiel Elliott, too, who was really quiet throughout that game, and the Colts defense. So there you have it, Manny. 2 different stacks, 2 largely different player pools, or 2. I mean, let's see. Different quarterbacks, both different running backs.
Yep.
Different punt receiver, different pay-up receiver, Tyler Boyd and Gesicki, different flex running back, and Colts. Yep. Only 3 players, 3 crossover players, similar players, on those 2 lineups that came in first and fourth place in this huge contest.
Yeah, and he again was able to pick the right game stack. I think that's what it came down to. I think Gesicki was a pretty unique play on its own, right? Obviously being 7%, but the 2 touchdowns were huge. We talked about it. It almost felt like Boyd, another garbage touchdown, but it wasn't garbage. They tied the game and went to overtime, right? So it was just kind of just a perfect comeback from them there at the end, which allowed for these massive scores, allowed Dalton to have 400 yards. It was a really well thought out lineup, man. Again, if you were on the right stack, I think that went a long way for you. You kind of needed Miami and Cincy. I don't think you could have got there with another stack, really. Or if you did get there with another stack, say Matt Ryan, Julio, like he did, you needed a piece of that Miami game, and he still had it with Boyd and Gesicki there.
For sure. Let's take a look at second place, too. $712,000 profit. This guy came in second and third. Is that right?
Yep, he did.
He did. He came in second and third place. Actually, as a matter of fact,
he did 500 and 250.
Yeah, I was wondering, did the third and fourth finish with the? Hold on. So fourth doesn't
go to all lineups.
What's up?
You can go to all lineups there at the top, and you'll see exactly their placing.
Right. Okay. Perfect. So Utica, look, same exact. Oh no, it wasn't. I don't know why Utica didn't show up in the other one, but never mind. Unimportant. So. Second place lineup, Andy Dalton, again, McCaffrey, Freeman. So McCaffrey, that's the first time we've seen much McCaffrey.
Yep.
Parker, Golden Tate, Tyler Boyd, Dallas Goedert, DeAndre Washington, and Falcons D. Falcons D, wow, 9 from Falcons D. So he crushes this if he has Colts defense.
Oh, yeah. He
runs away with it.
He runs away with the entire tournament, and it was only that second place lineup because his third place lineup did have Colts, right? So it was just like, man, if only you had Colts in that second place lineup. But another fantastic lineup. Again, you were on the right stack. First time we see McCaffrey, and it's kind of weird because McCaffrey did have a really good game. We talked about it. They got destroyed, but the 15 catches for 120 or whatever he had, he's game script proof. Doesn't matter if they're losing by 100, the guy will still get his 30. That's what he does. And if you were able to pay up for him somehow, then you were in a pretty nice spot. I thought Goddard and Tate were the difference makers for him. Goddard pretty unique on its own too. So very good contrarian plays in this lineup compared to some of the other ones.
You want to see the type of volume some people play in this? Chipotle Addict, one of the better players that we know of, finished in 35th place and lost $126,000 on this contest.
Oh my goodness.
Which probably is nothing to him.
Probably doesn't care.
Nevertheless, tough beat for him. It was, a lot of red. He'll go off and have monster weeks. But I mean, imagine the swings when you're playing this type of volume, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine. He had a week last week.
He maxed it. It's like 166,000 or something.
Yeah, he had a week last year where he left a dummy in there by accident. And it was it's funny because it was a Dolphins dummy lineup. And it obviously did not cash, and he lost every single dollar he put in on the site.
Wow.
Can you imagine something crazy like that happen? I could not even imagine.
That's nuts. Marco says that's probably like 10% for him. I would assume that's way less than 10%. Honestly.
That's not 10% for him.
I would assume it's like, I don't know what.
It's like 1%.
1 to 2%.
Yeah,
seriously.
That's something minimal for him.
Let's see what went wrong, because there were also, you see a lot of these huge scores, but there were also a lot of like good players that had bad weeks.
Yeah, there were 6 guys in total that input the max 111. Every single one of them had negative weeks.
Yeah, Osimo had a tough week.
Osimo had a tough week. Brandon Adams, Chess is okay, Chipotle and Papa Gates, and Ricky D all had 6-figure losses, really. Papa Gates was the only one that had 91,000 in losses, but they pretty much all had 6-figure losses yesterday. It was a rough week. It was.
So let's see what happened here.
Sure.
Chipotle Addict went different, but he didn't go different really with Fitzpatrick or Dalton or Daniel Jones. He went different with Will Grier. Had a lot of him, Rivers, Wentz, Minshew, Tannehill. So he left the reservation, just went left instead of going right.
Yeah, correct. It's just one of those where Will Grier was kind of tough. And I get the appeal of a cheap quarterback where, if he goes off, man, you get to pay up for so many guys. If you can get McCaffrey in there too, you can have a pretty nice week. But just kind of comparing Grier and his receivers when you pair them compared to some of the other games, I just thought that Carolina offense just falls way behind when I kind of put them all together. They'll fall behind the Lamar Jackson teams. They'll fall behind the Tannehill teams. They'll fall behind the Wilson Fitzpatrick teams. There were so many guys that I had, so many pairings I had way ahead of not just Will Grier, but if you continue, I had it way ahead of Phillip Rivers, way ahead of Carson Wentz. Gardner Minshew, I think, was 15th or 16th on my board. So he really went unique in a tournament where I didn't think you needed to go that unique, right? Again, 3,000 entries. So maybe he still had the mentality of a really, really large field tournament when this was really just 3,000 entries.
It could be. I don't know. I'm never going to try and question Chipotle Addict's
mentality.
No,
fantastic player. Fantastic.
It's better than mine, But what it comes down to, he didn't have the top producing quarterbacks, and in turn didn't have those stacks. Didn't have really any Saquon Barkley either. Had a little bit of Tyler Boyd, but not a lot. Actually spread exposures out quite a bit, but a few of those really big performances, he wasn't on them, right? And Let's see if he had any Mike Gesicki. That would be another one. 2, only 1.8%. So you can kind of see the plays that got you there and the plays that you needed. He had 4% Colts. And let's see his lineups that cashed. So he cashed how many of them? I think he cashed like 10.
He cashed about, I'd say like 10 or something, right?
Yeah,
Chipotle cashed 10, yeah.
Yeah, he cashed 10.
Yep.
One was the Ryan Fitzpatrick lineup, okay? One was a Lamar Jackson lineup that had Devonta Freeman, And then you look at Colts defense. Two of them were Colts defense. It's just there was a lot that you needed to cash to win. It's a totally different story. Like to cash, you needed a couple of those big performances, but to win it, you needed most of them. And now, granted, there were a lot. Like we're seeing Dallas Goedert towards the top, but not in all of those lineups, right? Tyler Boyd's in most of them, but Parker wasn't in all of them. It was Fitzpatrick wasn't in all of them. It was Dalton in a lot of them. Interestingly, because of how the game stack shook out, did you notice that Daniel Jones, I would have thought Daniel Jones would have been in more of the top lineups.
Yeah, I actually liked him a ton to both. We talked about it yesterday. I liked him a ton to Shepard and Slayton. Slayton, obviously, with the injury was kind of brutal, but had a very, very good game. If that was more stacky type, like if you could have game stack
exactly what it was,
and there were predictable guys on the other side running it back that did well, then that could have probably rivaled that Miami Cincy game, but just didn't have anyone to run it back really.
Yeah, and I think one of the big thing is, like, ultimately, you're talking about the 76 points in that game, but it didn't really matter because the stacks, like, outside of Barkley really weren't that – not that they weren't that great because, well, here's another thing. Like, are you running it back with Sims? Most people probably didn't have a lot of Sims in those lineups. Like, look at this Daniel Jones lineup. It had Barkley, Tate, and I don't think any run back at all.
Yeah. No run back. No.
There was no run back at all. So it kind of goes to show you. Let's see if we can find another Daniel Jones lineup. Okay, here's one more Daniel Jones lineup. Chess is okay. I believe you said he had a rough week as well.
Yeah, he was part of that one, the maxing out group that didn't. By the way, I have a neat trick for you because now that I'm watching the stream live, kind of with muted sound. In the beginning of the lineup, right where the quarterback is, you see like 3 little lines. It's almost like a menu bar. Yeah. If you click that, the lineup pops up. And
that's pretty sweet. Did not see. That's why you're here to help me with this. That's pretty sweet.
I see you kind of like scrolling through everything. I'm like, there's a way easier way to see this.
Yeah, look at that. Sweet.
Yeah.
All right. Look, that's a full out stack too, man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
210, but still, mind you, that's also down at what? What is it, like 60th place or something? I don't know. I don't even see where it is right now, but yeah. Oh, here we go. 50 something, 50, 58, 59. So like good lineup, but those stacks weren't enough to get it done. All right. Let's close it out with this. Everyone's asking, how did Laz Gets Fit do? Well, here he is. He did profit. Not a huge profit, but he profited nonetheless. $4,500 profit for our boy Laz Gets Fit. Let's take a look. So, Manny, his winning lineup, let me click these 3 lines here. Ryan Fitzpatrick, not winning lineup, his best lineup. Ryan Fitzpatrick, DeAndre Washington, Joe Mixon, Devontae Parker, Terry McLaurin, John Ross, Austin Hooper, Saquon Barkley, and the Colts defense. Colts defense had everything to do with this slate.
Yeah, it was what you needed, really. It was what you needed. But good lineup, man. As long as you were on that Cincy Miami game, and I'm starting to feel like any version of that stack, right? Because
seriously,
most people had Parker. If you ran it back, you're running it back with one of Tyler Boyd or maybe Mixon, maybe Ross. But that'll probably open up another spot for like a Saquon or a McCaffrey, maybe. So any version of this, I think, could have got you in the green.
Yeah, by the way, Mr. Slowbo says, I never listen to any of these so-called experts because the excuses fly the next day. These guys were screaming Mixon yesterday. Ha, 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 ha. Number one, why are you here? Number two, Mixon was ruled to have a stomach virus after the show ended. I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
They're making excuses for their poor play. I don't know.
He's saying he had a great week, and I'm happy that you did.
And look, like, you can tell he's just uneducated or maybe ignorant. He just says, with Greer starting QB, why would you not use the Colts D? That did not do anything. It was 2 punt returns, homie. Like, I don't know. Like, people that are just ignorant, don't watch the games, and have excuses for their poor play. Yeah, don't listen to those guys.
Either way, the Joe Mixon thing, I personally had no idea what to do with him when that happened. I
Yeah,
had
I
no
mean, I
idea what to
luckily
do with him
didn't
when
end up on much Joe Mixon at all.
neither did I would have had a good amount of him, honestly.
Yeah, I
Maybe he
would have
would
had
have
a good
been
amount too. I just did not. I did not end up there at all. I think I had maybe 1 or 2 Joe Mixons. That's it,
yeah,
out
and
of my 150.
he
So
might have been terrible anyway. It's very
yep,
possible that he would have been
yep.
terrible anyway. I think I had around 15%, and then I bumped down his workload afterwards because I don't know. The report was we don't know how much work he's going to see, and he
Yep.
still had a full workload.
He
So
looked. He looked like he didn't even have energy yesterday. Like, that video that surfaced before that video that surfaced right before the game, where they had a huddle and they all ran out to the field. He literally just walked onto the field.
yeah,
The reporters during the game were saying, like, the energy's just not there for Mixon. So I don't know. I guess it was significant.
right. So was he just bad because he still got the workload? Was he just bad, or was he like legitimately impacted by? He says my point proven. The excuses are flying. I literally just said I would have had a lot of Mixon. That's hardly an excuse.
I'm not excusing my zero Mixon. The heck?
Yeah, but anyway, let's take a look at Laz. So, top lineup, we just saw it there. His exposures here were Lamar, Fitzpatrick, Will Greer, David Blau, and Haskins. He loves to go wild. I mean, that is crazy, right? Look at that.
Haskins.
He had 71% Mixon, 5 of 7 lineups Mixon, a lot of DeAndre Washington, McCaffrey, 1 Barkley lineup, Freeman, Melvin Gordon, and Mack, Devontae Parker, McLaurin, Amendola, Allen. That's an interesting player pool up there. Tight end, he had 6 out of 7 Mike Gesicki.
That's impressive, man. He nailed a perfect tight end, and obviously using him in that stack was imperative. Good job, Laz. Great job. Can't go broke making a profit, my friend.
Ravens, Eagles, 1 Colts lineup, which, if you guessed, was his best, and the Dolphins. Did he play any defense against his? He hasn't been doing that as much lately.
No, I think you're right.
I don't think he has
If,
any.
if he lands there, sure. If he doesn't, he's not going to force it. Maybe, probably.
Right. So I guess I have settings where I'll put like you can play 1 against my defense.
Sure.
I don't have it at 0, but he's had it at, what did he have it at? 2 or 3 the one time where he won all that money.
He's running stacks against these defenses.
Anyway, it's been fun. Love hanging out with you guys every Monday, breaking everything down, making excuses. It's been a great 17 weeks. Manny, I'm really happy that you could come over from Cruncher and from what you're doing on twitch.tv/mlaura to join me every day. And we got 1 more week on Sirius. We'll close out week 17 in the regular season on a good note.
Yeah, man, for sure. Always a lot of fun. So thanks for having me on, and can't wait till our last week on Sirius next week.
If you guys enjoyed the show, hit us with a thumbs up. It helps us out, and really, the small support goes a long way. Subscribe, hit the notification bell as well. Deeper dive coming up later in the day, talking an 11-game NBA slate, and live before lock as well. A whole lot coming up. By the way, Jake Hari, you know what? It's going to be Nolan Kelly and Michael Clifford with your daily fantasy NHL picks today at 4 p.m. And that'll do it. We'll close out the week. We'll close out Monday, go into Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas to all of you. Have a great holiday, and we'll catch you back here soon on the NFL Strategy Show.